Hey, what's up guys, it's France here. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I made a breakdown or an analysis comparing someone that is a US citizen's portfolio after 30 years of investing versus someone that is a non-US citizen. I wanted to compare what their 30-year portfolio looks like, because many of you guys know US citizens pay a lot of taxes, including myself. I do know that being a US citizen myself. So I actually plan on potentially renouncing my US citizenship in the future once I get the means to do that. Currently, right now, I only hold the passport from the Philippines, which, is not that strong given the fact that I'm not able to enter a lot of European countries in which I love. So, I will wait for my personal portfolio once I do decide to do this. I do need somewhat of a stronger passport, a passport that allows me to enter potentially European countries. Before we get started, guys, I would definitely appreciate it if you guys give me a thumbs up below. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So just a few key points for this video. This video obviously benefits those that are US citizens the most, but also benefits those that have high cost of living. So maybe you live in Canada, maybe you live in the UK, maybe you live in Australia. This video will benefit you as well, because this video does have a cost analysis breakdown in terms of cost of living. And also, you might also maybe live in a country that has high taxes. Now, the only difference between myself and you is that the US is one of the only few countries that taxes citizens around the world, wherever you live. I could live in Mexico, the Philippines, the UK. It doesn't matter. I still have to pay US taxes. All right. So for you guys that live in the UK, Australia, you're not taxed on your worldwide income. The US is the only country that does that. So, it's a lot easier for you guys to practice this versus someone that is a US citizen. So, but those of you that are US citizens, this video will benefit you the most for sure. And obviously, if you have high net worth, obviously, if your crypto bags are in the multi-millions of dollars, you have a big stock bag, this will obviously benefit you. People that can make money online anywhere in the world, obviously that has to happen. If you're not able to make money outside the US, if you require US jobs to make money, obviously, because if you do renounce your US citizenship, you're not able to apply for jobs in the US. So those people that require jobs in the US and need jobs in the US, then this video is not going to be for you. So who is this video not for? Again, if your ambition is to climb the corporate ladder, if you want to be the CEO of a company, starting from an employee all the way to CEO, climbing the corporate ladder, then yeah, this video is not going to be for you. It's not going to benefit you. I'm not gonna argue which second passports to get. There's obviously an abundance of second passports to get. You have the Portugal Golden Visa program, which eventually leads to a passport. You have the Caribbean passport options. There's so many passport options that I'm not going to argue which country is the best to live in. Obviously, that's your own preference. Some of you might be preferring a country in the European zone because it might closely resemble those in the Western world, or some of you might like the culture in Latin American countries. I'm not here to argue that. It's only a cost benefit, tax benefit analysis. All right, just a side note, for those of you that really can't stomach renouncing your US citizenship, there is a Puerto Rico option. So you can, for you to benefit from the Puerto Rico option, you essentially have to live in Puerto Rico for 6 months. Nothing against Puerto Rico. I would love to visit that country, but I just don't want to have the idea of being stuck. All right. I don't want to be stuck in one country for 6 months just to be able to save money on taxes. All right. So Puerto Rico for me is a no-go, just because of the fact that the 6 months of requirement to live there in order to take advantage of the taxes. And also, there's another option that I found online, which is called the charitable remainder trust option. So for those of you that want to do more research on that, and you want to take that route, maybe you just want to take that route. But for me, after doing my research on that, there are some few key assumptions there. If I don't live for 20 years and I were to pass away before the 20 years, the charitable remainder trust might not be for me. The requirement to maintain a charitable remainder trust is just a headache for me. So, with that, I want to keep my life as simple as possible. So I don't really want to mess with the Puerto Rico or the CR2 option, the charitable remainder trust. So for those of you guys that really, really, really want to keep your U.S. passport, consider these two options. If you are a high net worth individual and want to save money on taxes, definitely look into Puerto Rico and the CRT, Charitable Remainder Trust. But for those of you that are thinking about renouncing your US passport, the number one and most important limiting belief is going to be family and friends. The more family, the more friends you have in the US, it makes it very hard to leave the country. I'm single currently. I don't have any kids, so it makes it a lot easier for me, but I still have my mom, my brothers, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. They all live in the US, so it makes it really hard for me. But one way to get around that is you can get something like a visa. You can easily get a 10-year visa in the US, maybe a 1-year visa, a 2-year visa. There's so many different visa options to where I'm still able to go in, enter the US via a visa and still enjoy the benefits of vacationing and visiting family in the US. Obviously, if you have a wife, if you have kids in the US, it makes it a lot harder to renounce your US citizenship. And then number two is going to be healthcare. Obviously, healthcare in the US is top notch. It's the best. It's also very expensive. Let's say you have some rare condition that only some US doctor can solve, then renouncing would be a bad idea. Once you accept the fact that healthcare is actually great in many other countries in the European zone, in the Asian zone, there are a lot of many healthcare doctors around the world. So, once you figure that out, it makes it a lot easier to renounce. All right. So number three is going to be going to non-English speaking countries. Someone like me that's really open-minded, that's not really going to stop me, knowing that a country doesn't really speak English, make friends. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people in that country that can speak English, so it doesn't matter if a country doesn't speak English. I mean, if that's going to stop you from renouncing, then that's a very small, maybe you need to do business in the US. For me, I'm currently studying for my Series 65, and after doing all my studies, I can still do business in the US. I can still establish a hedge fund in the United States. So even if I didn't have my US citizenship, I can still become a hedge fund manager in the US. So, take a look at your business and see if you're able to do that, not being a US citizen. All right, so key point number 5, guys. The key point number 5 is going to be making one-off trips to the US. So maybe you're a Tom Brady fan like me and want to see a random football game, or you're a LeBron fan and want to see a random LeBron game. So yeah, just to answer that limiting belief, you just need a visa. Just get a visa and that limiting belief gets crushed. Number 6 is going to be needing to meet someone face to face. I mean, nowadays, especially during the pandemic, people are doing things virtually nowadays. You really do need to do business with them and meet face to face, then invite them over to your country. Maybe pay for their flights if there's someone very important to your business. Portfolio assumptions, guys, before we get started. So I have here interest income of 7%. These are based off of historical S&P 500 returns over the past few decades. And many of you guys know that I myself am a crypto investor. So these returns are going to be much higher, especially those of you that are crypto investors like me. But I want to keep it simple. I'm just going to keep it at 7% average returns. And obviously, the tax rate is going to be, the more money you make, the more taxes you pay. So currently right now, I'm just going to set an average US tax rate of 30%. That could be lower if you make less, and that also could be higher, especially if you live in states like California, states where you pay state tax. All right, and also I'm going to exclude the analysis of 401ks and IRAs. If you have 401ks, IRAs, I know those are tax savings in itself. I'm going to exclude that from this analysis. And finally, I'm going to base an assumption of a portfolio starting at $1 million. If your portfolio is less than $1 million, then it's not worth it to renounce your US citizenship, because, just to get a second passport alone, just to buy a second passport, if you don't have the luxury of being a descendant of a family from these countries, it's about 150 grand for a Caribbean passport. So think about 150 grand investment for a passport, and your portfolio is less than $1 million. That's already 15% of your net worth going into passports. That's not worth it for me. So the first driving factor is going to be taxes. Obviously, those of you that are living in high tax countries like the US, you will pay high taxes. And also the second driving factor will be cost of living. All right, so, year one, obviously you can treat this whatever age you are. Currently right now I'm 28, so year one for me, Could be next year whenever I achieve, hopefully, the $1 million net worth, hopefully when I'm 29. So year one for me could be when I'm 29. So year one, we'll assume that you cashed out your cryptocurrency portfolio. And let's go ahead and assume that you have $1 million after taxes, right? You've already paid your taxes, your tax liability covered, $1 million after taxes, and you're considering to renounce starting at the $1 million mark. Okay. Year one, let's say age 29, according to me, you'll have $1 million. And, we'll assume an average S&P 500 benchmark return of 7%. Obviously, if you make money in crypto, it's going to be way more than this. If you take into account passive income and capital appreciation, it's going to be more than 7%. But we're going to keep it very basic and keep it at 7%. So, your interest income for that year is going to be $70,000 for the first year, okay? So, again, we're going to keep it simple and just assume a tax rate of 30%. So your tax liability for year one is going to be $21,000. After factoring your taxes, your income after tax will be 49 grand. I think a $48,000 per year of expenses in the United States is not that much, but it's also not to where you're living super frugal. So I think $48,000 would be a pretty good expense budget in the US for you to just enjoy your life. So, after year one, you're going to have $1,000 left over to invest. And then obviously you can put that $1,000 back to your portfolio, making your portfolio 1 million and one. Eventually, I'm not going to go over this whole chart. 30 years of investing, you will have a portfolio value of 1,061,000. All right. I'm obviously not factoring in if you have side hustles, if you have YouTube income, you have side hustles. I'm not factoring that in. I'm only factoring in your investment portfolio. All right. Okay, so now let's move on to someone that is a non-US citizen. Pay for your taxes. So I'm assuming the $1 million is going to be after taxes and after your renouncing fee. So after you pay all your fees for renouncing your US passport, you're left over with $1 million. And also you pay off your student loan debt, whatever debt you have in the US. Obviously, I can't imagine a scenario where you have student loan debt and things like that. I would assume, obviously I need to do more research on this, but I would assume that you have to pay any US-based personal debt. If it's for the business, that might be a different story, but personal debt, I do assume that you probably have to pay that as soon as you renounce. So I'm going to assume that you have $1 million after paying off all your tax liabilities and all your debt, okay? So same thing for someone that is a non-US citizen, same interest income, 7%. Now tax liability, 5%, I'm not here to argue with you the tax rate here, but you can watch someone like the Nomad Capitalist. He teaches a lot of topics based on how you're able to reduce your tax rate all the way down to 5%. I'm not here to argue that. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a flat tax rate of 5% here. Okay. So 5% tax rate, if you renounce your US citizenship. Factor number 2 is going to be cost of living. So, if you do renounce your US citizenship and you go to a country like Canada, the UK, Australia, then that defeats the purpose, because you're going to end up paying maybe the same or more as what you paid in the US. So in the US, for you to have a decent life, it's going to be $48,000 a year. Obviously, that's not factoring in inflation. As inflation goes up, the cost of living will go up, but I'm not going to factor in inflation. So, I'm going to assume that you're living in countries that have low cost of living, but you can still live a very bougie luxury life. So, some countries that I can think of is, Ukraine, Latin American countries, the Philippines. So there's so many countries out there that are third world countries, but you can live that extremely luxury life and, bougie life for $24,000 a year, in my opinion. So half the expense you would pay in the United States. So after the first year, like you can see here the big difference. After the first year, you're left over with $42,500 versus the American. Right, the American is left over with $1 grand. So you're already way ahead of the game. Number one, reducing your tax rate, and number two, reducing your cost of living without reducing your bougie lifestyle. Okay, so after 30 years, you're gonna have a portfolio value of $4,495,000. So let's go ahead and put that. All right, guys. So this third category here is gonna be for U.S. citizens living outside the United States. So these are people that are still paying U.S. taxes but benefit by the fact that they are not having to pay United States cost of living. So let's actually calculate someone's portfolio that's living like that. So, we'll assume a tax rate still of 30%, obviously. Let's just assume that. I know it's going to be lower because you're not having to pay state taxes, but let's just make that assumption of 30%. But now the big difference is your cost of living expenses get cut in half. So $24,000 per year because you live outside the US. Again, same quality of life because you live in really, really cheap countries that have really amazing cost of living. So, same tax rate, you cut your cost of living expense in half, your portfolio is going to be 2.5 million. So you're already better off than someone that's a US citizen living in the US. The US citizen, obviously not factoring in side hustles, okay? The US citizen has a portfolio value after 30 years of $1,061,000. The US citizen living outside the US, double the portfolio, 2.5 million, 139% increase. And finally, the person that renounced, okay, the person that gave up their US passport, 4,495,000, okay, that's going to be a 324% increase compared to the US citizen, okay. So obviously you guys can see here from this analysis alone that the person that renounced their citizenship benefits greatly from this, okay. All right, so now let's actually factor in capital gains because, I'm assuming, imagine this was $1 million that you invested at the bottom of the next cycle in cryptocurrency. Let's say Ethereum, Bitcoin were to climb to 100, 200K for Bitcoin, and then like 20K for Ethereum, 10K for Ethereum, and then crashes back down to 2K, 3K, 4K. Then you're able to insert that $1 million back into Bitcoin or Ethereum or Cardano, okay, whatever currency of your choice, okay. After 4 or 5 years, assuming you believe in expanding cycles, after 4 or 5 years, you're going to experience massive capital gains, okay. So let's just say your portfolio peaks at $1 million in 2022, which is when I believe the cryptocurrency market will peak. After tax, you have $1 million in 2022, and let's just say the worst scenario, you achieve a 5x, okay. I mean in crypto, a 5x, that's pretty little league, but like very conservative. Obviously, the higher this number is, the more it'll benefit the non-US citizen. But obviously, I just want to give you guys a plain and simple conservative analysis. So let's just say in 2028, your $1 million portfolio in crypto, not counting your passive income, your $1 million portfolio in crypto becomes $5 million, okay? So that's going to be 2028. So let's just say in 2028, which is going to be year 7, you're going to have a $5 million portfolio, okay. So if you're a US citizen, you can easily cash that out if you want, or you can just stay in that portfolio, but we'll assume that you'll cash it out because we do have boom and bust cycles, okay, in the US. So a $5 million portfolio in the US, if you tax that out as an American, you're going to pay at least 30% taxes on that, okay. So going to be a $5 million portfolio. You're going to be left with $3.5 million in year 7. So if you consider $3.5 million, you cashed it out, okay? 3.5. Okay, so as a US citizen, if you cash out your $3.5 million, pay your taxes, all right? And then wait again until the next cryptocurrency bear market or whenever that is, and still assume an interest income of 7%, okay? So at the end of 30 years, you're going to have a portfolio of $9.5 million, okay? So $9.5 million. All right, now let's actually take a look at the non-US citizen, okay? So the non-US citizen, you're probably able to find a country in which you pay 5% capital gains, okay? I'm not going to argue which countries those are. This is not a how-to video. It's only a cost-benefit analysis. But, let's assume you only pay 5% capital gains because you figured out a tax system outside the U.S. in which you're able to do that, okay? So at the end of, 2028, after cashing out your crypto, you're only paying 5% capital gains. So you're left with 4,750,000. So obviously, just cashing out your capital gains, you're already ahead of the US citizen by, well over $1 million there. So the non-US citizen, after 30 years, again, you're going to have multiple boom and bust cycles throughout your 30-year career in investing, but I'm not going to factor that in. I'm only going to factor in one boom and bust cycles. Obviously, the more boom and bust cycles you have, the more you cash in and out of the market, the more capital gains you'll pay. So it obviously hurts the US citizen. So we'll put that in our summary, non-US citizen. So obviously, in terms of the multiple, it's pretty similar here. It's only a 2x and the percentage is only 106%. But if you see the dollar value is pretty significant. So $19 million, again, that's very conservative. especially if you're a crypto investor. Very conservative. $19 million for the non-US citizen, and then $9 million for the US citizen. So let's actually take a difference of that, okay? Assuming you're a crypto investor. So that's going to be a $10 million difference. Now, ask yourself the question, guys. Ask yourself the question, is maintaining your US passport worth it for $10 million? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. If $10 million for you is a lot of money and the US passport is not worth $10 million to you, then yeah, I would say that renouncing your US citizenship might be a good idea. Again, not tax advice, not legal advice, not financial advice. This is something that I'm strongly considering in my personal life, my personal portfolio. Currently right now, I don't have the means to renounce, but once my portfolio breaches $1 million after taxes paid, after the liabilities paid, all my credit card debt, all that stuff, all my personal debt, $1 million net worth after student loans, after all of that, $1 million net worth, then I actually might consider giving up my US passport, guys. So that is my breakdown, guys. So, take this with a grain of salt, obviously. Apply your own key assumptions. These are only my assumptions for my personal life. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And, for those of you that stayed until the very end of the video, I definitely appreciate, all your support. And, again, if you haven't liked the video, please do like the video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time.